So hi, welcome back to another episode of What Are We Doing? My name is Peter Hill, and I thought today we'd have another little look at some of the tests that we do in Larne. So ultimately, the the, the biggest test for swimmers is the results in the pool. We need to use the tests that we do in training to evaluate how they're progressing through their swimming, whether that be their fitness or their skill level. And what I try to do is implement tests that I can run um, as benchmarks. All right, so the same warm ups, same cool downs, the same parameters around the testing. Um, and I don't really like tests that get in the way of training. So if I can implement some sort of work that complements the training or that I can do as part of the training set, then that tends to be the way I do it. Um, so the first one up is the efficiency test. And this is the little dashboard I use for it. As you can see, this is for Connor on backstroke. And the first test he did was on the 9th of October last year. This is in the run into European short course. Okay. And the way we run the test is for the 8 weeks prior to the meet, we do this every Wednesday morning. And the first week they do 850s off 230. And they start at PB plus 15. And my job in that set is to record their time, their stroke rate, and their stroke count. Okay. Then they go PB plus 13, 11, 9, 7, 5, 3, and 1, or better. And the goal is to descend by approximately 2 seconds per 50. And what we should get is what we should get is a nice little curve where their score, their overall score, improves as they become slightly more efficient across the weeks. So this is the first week. As you can see, Connor started on 39 seconds with a 19 stroke count for the 50. And he finished on 26 with a 25 stroke count. We plot a nice little graph, and we do some jiggery pokery with some maths to find a power score, which is 52, and his most efficient score was 47.2. That's very simple maths. That's just time and stroke count. Okay, and his best score here was number 6, as you can see, that lowest line. All right, now in the week following the test set, 3 or 4 times that week, ideally every day, but 3 or 4 times that week, we would run a set of 6 to 850s on 90 backstroke, where Connor would have to hold a total score of 52. So he could swim it in 30 seconds and 22 strokes, or he could swim it in 25 seconds and 27 strokes. All right. Then when we come the second week, we don't do the slowest 50. All right. So every week we drop a 50. So this is the second week. There's 750s, and we look to be a little bit better. So as you can see, the power score dropped to 48. Then we go to week 3, power score has dropped again to 47, and we are only on 650s. And we keep carrying that through until we get to the last 3 weeks. Okay, the last 3 weeks we go 350s, 350s, 350s. So it goes 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 3, 3. All right, and this is the test that Connor carried out immediately prior to traveling the race. As you can see, his power score has dropped substantially from 52 down to 44, and his most efficient score, still not the fastest one, still number 7 for him here, had a power score, or had an efficiency score of 42.3. So we've tried very hard to improve skill level. We tried very hard just to make him swim a little bit more efficiently, because the rationale behind it is that if he can be efficient in his swimming, then that's going to allow him to have a little bit more energy to apply into some more effort, and then ultimately faster times. Okay, so that test is something that we only do in the competition phase. We only do it in the last 8 weeks, and we do it every week. It takes him a little bit of time to get used to it. And we saw quite a drastic improvement in Connor because it was the first time he's done it with us. If I'd put Danielle's on here, I haven't got it on here, but if I put Danielle's on her, you could see that she holds the same stroke count all the way through and gets faster. Rather than her stroke count descending, she's able to hold a stroke count 20 strokes really comfortably. And then her time descends, and that gives her a slightly different curve, but the same principle applies. All right, and again, we do this with everybody. It's not just Danielle and Connor, it's everybody. Doesn't matter what stroke, this principle is always the same. PB plus 15, then the second week we start at PB plus 13, the third week plus 11, and we keep going. The last week it's plus 5, 3, and 1. And they have to descend by 2 seconds every 50, and they've got to hold their stroke count for as long as humanly possible. At some point, we're going to see a little upturn, as you can see here on this graph right here. There's a little upturn. It's quite a significant one. And we're looking for that point. And at that point is where we're asking them to work on the sets that we do every day during the week between sets. That little upturn is the limit of their abilities. In theory, that's where they're working at their absolute limit. And we ask them then to work at that point or slightly better than that point the whole week before the next test. All right, and it's all about pushing them at their limit, just pushing that limit as far as we can to try and make them slightly more efficient. Okay, so that's a fairly simple test set. All right, so the last major sort of test set that we would do would be the aerobic capacity test. This is a test it's very simple. It's a timed 400. And this little there, this little table is John or Banchek's work. It's not mine. You can go online, you can Google it. And basically what you do is you put in their time for their 400, and it works out all these algorithms to give you pacings for every distance from the 50 through to the 500. Now I've cut some out. You can have 250, 350, and 450 in there, but we don't really swim those distances. So and what I do is that first session, September, end of August, we get back in the water, they'll go with time 400. And that will set the training times for the next little mesocycle. All right, and I would do this test at the start of each mesocycle. So it's every 4 or 5 weeks, and it sets the tone for their aerobic capacity work for that 5 weeks. Okay, it's kind of a replacement for a lactate testing, which we just don't have the capacity to do. But to be honest, it doesn't give me any that vastly different results. So obviously Danielle has been away on some Ireland camps where they've done a time 400 with a lactate test, and they've got turnover times and pacing times back, and the times are within a second. It's fantastic work John Urbanchik obviously has done. It's cheap, it's free, costs you nothing. So I couldn't recommend it enough, really. So what we do is, this is Danielle's, I think it was September sometime, 448 for a 400 backstroke. And if we use the same color banding as I use for all of the work. So the white is regeneration, pink is aerobic maintenance, purple is aerobic development, red is anaerobic threshold, and orange, is VO2 max. Okay, and the way we run our sets, all right, and this falls back to your philosophies. Okay, how much rest you think they should be getting for these repeats. All right, and this is just the way I do it. All right, this is the way I think I get the best results. You have to figure it out yourself, really. This is, like I say, just how I do it. So if I ask Danielle to do an aerobic maintenance piece on 200s backstroke, I would be asking her to swim around about 241, off around about 250. Okay, in an ideal world, we would probably have a clock that was digital, and they could go exactly on 251. That's not the way it works in a squad, unfortunately. So Danielle will have to go off 250. And we keep an eye on heart rates. And if the heart rates are a little bit low, then she'll go off a little bit quicker time, or she'll hold a little bit faster time. If the heart rate's a little bit high, then she'll go off 255 instead, something like that. Make the adjustments as we go. Okay. The red bar, the anaerobic threshold. If we were doing sets on anaerobic threshold, asking Danielle to hold 114 in this mesocycle, she'd be going off 145 at 30 seconds rest. She'd be going 200s, holding 233 off 3 minutes. And again, checking the heart rate, maybe have to push it to 305 to make sure she's working at the right intensity. And if her heart rate's a little low, see if she can hold a little bit faster. Okay, and as we get towards the end of each of the mesocycles, I would like to think that the times would be a little faster and be reverting more towards heart rates rather than these times before we do the next set. Okay, VO2 max is one that I think it gets done differently. If memory serves me right, on the opposite sides of the Atlantic, my understanding is that we do VO2 max to work at our VO2 max. Okay, rather than to improve our VO2 max. I might be wrong, but that's the way I try to pitch it. So again, for Danielle in this scenario, hundreds off holding 111, off 215, 220, something like that. Right, so it's a reasonable amount of rest to work at that intensity. Okay, and then what we do is they get this little laminated sheet and they all have their own. And then I think this is one we did 5 weeks later for Danielle. And as you can see, the time dropped to 4:32. So all of her pacings drop. All right, and every 5 weeks they get there, every 4 weeks. At the start of every mesocycle, they do this test on, and it gets handed to them. And that's their times for the next 5 weeks. And that's kind of the way we do that aerobic capacity test. All right, and we do that all year. It goes all the way through. We do it in the base training phase, in the build-up training phase. We do it in the competition phase. I don't, if it happens to fall first week of taper, I don't do it the first week of race preparation. I don't like taper. First week of race preparation, I don't do it. So that's the vast majority of the testing I do with the pulse plot test that we talked about before and these two tests. I have toyed around with doing a speed test. I just don't think that at the time I did it, the group that I had were mature enough to get a big benefit out of it, so I stopped it. I might add it in at some point again in the future. The other one that I do is a cold swim, but I don't do it really as a very strict cold swim. What I would tend to do is 10 days after their pulse plot test, we would bring them down on a Sunday in Bangor, and they would get up in a racing suit, do their competition warm-up, get into their racing suit, and then they go 50 or 100 on their number one event, unless it falls in the taper, in which case it would be a 50 or 100 of another event. All right, and I treat that as close to being a race scenario as I possibly can. I video it, I give them a race breakdown, I give them a stroke count, a distance per stroke, and acceleration, velocity stuff. I treat it as close to being a race situation as I possibly can. All right, so that's kind of the testing that I do. It's not very adventurous, and like I said, I try to do it so that it fits within the confines of what I want to do in the session. The plan now for this is that I'm going to go through the plan for a season. So the next video that I do of this will break down a season and how I go about putting my mesocycles and macrocycles in place, how I go about deciding where the test sets go, and I'll go through that hopefully live and do it as thinking through my thought process on it. I hope to have a couple of coaching colleagues on here in the next week as well, just having a bit of a chat about swimming. But in the meantime, don't forget to hit the subscribe buttons, check out some of our other videos, and share. Okay, this is I'm delighted. There's I think there's 36 or 37 people that subscribed, but there's over 100 people watching the videos every time, and I'm delighted. So thank you very much. But we want to start a conversation. So let me know what you think. Let me know if you have any other ideas about how I can make those tests more beneficial. And in the meantime, until I talk again, stay home, stay safe. Remember that we're in this together, And fingers crossed, when we're back in the pool, we'll see you on deck.